Chapter 14, June 2001. I lowered the phone to the cradle and stared at it for a long time. It wasn't until a platoon startled me with a bark and that I realized how quiet the room had been. Soraya had muted the television. "You look pale, Amir," she said from the couch, the same one her parents had given us as a housewarming gift for our first apartment. She'd been lying on it with Aflatoon's head nestled on her chest, her legs buried under the warm pillows. She was half watching a PBS special on the plight of wolves in Minnesota, half correcting essays from her summer school class. She'd been teaching at the same school for now for 6 years. She sat up, and Aflatun leapt down from the couch. It was the general who had given her cocker spaniel his name. Farsi was Farsi for Plato, because he said if you looked hard enough and looked enough into the dog's filmy black eyes, you'd swear he was thinking wise thoughts. There was a silver fat, just a hint of it, beneath Soraya's chin now. The past 10 years had patted the curves of her hips some, and combed into her coal-black hair a few streaks of cinder gray, but she still had the face of a grand bald princess, with her bird-in-flight eyebrows and nose elegantly curved like a letter from ancient Arabic writings. "You look pale," Soraya repeated, placing a stack of papers on the table. "I have to go to Pakistan." She stood up now. "Pakistan?" Rahim Khan is very sick. A fist clenched inside me with those words. Kaka's old business partner? She never met Rahim Khan, but I told her about him. I nodded. "Oh," she said. "I'm so sorry, Amir." "We used to be close," I said. "When I was a kid, he was the first grown-up I ever thought of as a friend. I pictured him and Baba drinking in Baba's study, then smoking near the window a sweet briar-scented breeze flowing from the garden, and bending the twin columns of smoke. I remember you telling me that," Soraya said. She paused. "How long will you be gone?" "I don't know. He wants to see me. Is it—" "Yes, it's safe. It'll be all right, Soraya." It was a question she wanted to ask all along. 15 years of marriage had turned us into mind readers. I'm going to go for a walk. Should I go with you?" "Nay, I'd rather be alone." I drove to the Golden Gate Park and walked along Spreckles Lake on the northern edge of the park. It was a beautiful Sunday afternoon. The sun sparkled on the water where dozens of miniature boats sailed, propelled by a crisp San Francisco breeze. I sat on a park bench, watched a man toss a football to his son, telling him to not side on the ball, to throw over the shoulder. I glanced up and saw a pair of kites, red with long blue tails. They floated high above the trees on the west end of the park over the windmills. I thought about a comment Rahim Khan had made just before we hung up. Made it in passing, almost as an afterthought. I closed my eyes and saw him at the other side of the scratchy long-distance line. Saw him with his lips slightly parted, head tilted to one side, and again something in his bottomless black eyes hinted at an unspoken secret between us. Except now I knew he knew. My suspicions had been right all those years. He knew about Asef, the kite, the money, the watch with the lightning bolt hands. He had always known. "Come. There is a way to be good again," Rahim Khan had said on the phone just before hanging up. Said it in passing, almost as an afterthought, a way to be good. When I came home, Soraya was on the phone with her mother. "Won't be long, Banarjan. A week maybe or 2. Yes, you and Badar can stay with me." 2 years later, the general had broken his right hip. He'd had one of his migraines again, emerging from his room, bleary-eyed and dazed. He had tripped on loose carpet edge. His scream had brought Kala Jamila running from the kitchen. It sounded like a jaru, a broomstick, snapping in half. She was always fond of saying. The doctor had said it was unlikely she heard anything of the sort. The general's shattered hip and all of its ensuing complications of pneumonia, blood poisoning, the protracted stay at the nursery home, ended Kala Jamila's long-running soliloquies about her own health, and started new ones about the general's. She'd tell anyone who listened that the doctors had told him his kidneys were failing. But then they had never seen Afghan kidneys, had they? She said proudly. What I remember most about the general's hospital stay is how Kala Jamila would wait until he fell asleep and then sing to him songs I remember from Kabul, playing on Baba's scratchy old transistor radio. The general's frailty and tire softened things between him and Soraya too. They took walks together, went to lunch on Saturdays, and sometimes the general sat in some of her classes. He'd sit in the back of the room, dressed in his shiny old gray suit, wooden cane across his lap, smiling. Sometimes he even took notes. That night, Soraya and I lay in bed, her back pressed to my chest, my face buried in her hair. I remember when we used to lay forehead to forehead, sharing afterglow kisses and whispering until our eyes drifted close, whispering about tiny curled toes, first smiles, first words, first steps. We still did sometimes, but the whispers were about school, my new book, a giggle over someone's ridiculous dress at a party. Our love-making was still good, at times better than good, but some nights all I feel was a relief to be done with it, to be free to drift away and forget, at least for a while, about the futility of what we'd just done. She never said so, but I knew somehow Soraya felt it too. On those nights we each rolled to our side of the bed and let our own Savior take us away. Soraya's was asleep. Soraya's was asleep. Mine, as always, was a book. I lay in the dark the night Rahun called, and traced with my eyes the parallel silver lines on the wall made by moonlight pouring through the blinds. At some point, maybe just before dawn, I drifted to sleep and dreamed of Hassan running in the snow, the hem of his green chapan dragging behind him, snow crunching under his black rubber boots. He was yelling over his shoulder, "For you 1,000 times over." A week later, I sat on a window seat aboard a Pakistani International Airlines flight, watching a pair of uniformed airline workers remove the wheel chocks. The plane taxied out of the terminal, and soon we were airborne. Cutting through the clouds, I rested my head against the window, waited, in vain, for sleep.